In this tutorial, I just wanted to spend some time talking about the difference between the non-plural version of a lot of these conditional functions versus the plural version of these conditional functions, like a sumif versus a sumifs. Now, if you've spent some time in Excel, you might have noticed that a lot of these basic functions, like a sum function, also has a sumif function and a sumifs function. And at a higher level, the difference between the two is that the sumif versus sumifs, the sumif allows you to do the sum based on only one criteria. So like for this sales, for example, might do the sum if based on the chocolate chip sale, cookie sales. However, some ifs allows you to have your sum based on multiple criteria. So you can have it wait for the sum of chocolate chip cookie sales for the country of Mexico, for example. And same thing with the average if versus average ifs. The average ifs allows you to have more criteria than the average if. Average if is just one. There's no count ifs, but there is a count if, but count if is count ifs. Count if only allows you to have one, and count ifs allows you to have multiple criteria. There's no min if or max if, but min ifs and max ifs allows you to do min or max based on one or multiple criteria. And if versus ifs is a bit different in the sense that the if you can have as many nested if statements as you want, but the ifs can be a bit easier to read sometimes. So to kind of show you what I mean by that, first talk with the sum if. Now, one thing to keep in mind too is that the order of the arguments changes between these two. So if I could do sum if, tab control shift A, and then I just kind of put a quote in front of that to show you what I mean. And then sum ifs, sum range, and then control shift A. Put a quote in front of that, and then make these two alt HOW 35, for example. Kind of show what I mean by that a little bit. Sorry for the formatting, but as you can see though, the sum if has the range, the criteria, and then the sum range, and then the sum if though is kind of backwards in the sense that you have your sum range, your criteria range one, then your criteria one, then your range your second criteria, then the second criteria, and so on and so forth. But one thing to note is that if you're like, hey, I need to add a second argument, and you're going to switch between the two, you might need to redo the formula just because the order of the argument switches, and a lot of times it's easier to just write the thing real quick than to go through and mess around with like the order of them. So to kind of show you what I mean, do equals. They wanted to do sum if of revenue of chocolate chip cookie sales, right? Sum if open parentheses, the range is going to be the product type. So I can press control space to get the whole thing. And then the criteria, I'm just going to say right here, chocolate chip. Try not to have a typo, CHOCLATECHIP. And sum range is going to be the revenue, for example, so revenue. And as you can see, this might not as you can see with the formula, it's going like the financials and in brackets the column. That is because this is a table and not just a normal range. There's a sum if, but some ifs, let's just say 1 in cookie sales in Mexico. Some ifs, the sum range is going to be the revenue. The criteria range 1 is going to be the products. The criteria is going to be chocolate chip. And then the last criteria is going to be the country of Mexico. And as you can see, it is giving me an error. When it's showing that there is 0, that's because they probably had some sort of a typo in here, but I'll fix this typo real quick. But as you can see, though, total chocolate chip cookie sales is 1.6 million, but for just the country of Mexico, it's 216,000. Same sort of idea with the average if, where the criteria range is going to be the average chocolate chip cookie sales, for example, and the criteria is chocolate chip. HOCHOCOLATE chip. Now, and it's giving me age of 0. That is because there's probably some values with a 0, or because I did not select an average range, which is going to be the revenue. But however, the average ifs for just the country of Mexico, for example, the average range is, as you can see, it starts with the range and now finishes with it. The average range is going to be the country of Mexico. And then criteria range 1 is going to be the product type, for example, and it's going to be chocolate chip. With the second criteria range, as you can see, it flipped from the average ifs to the average ifs in the order of the arguments. It's going to be the country, and it's going to be Mexico. And same thing with count ifs is a bit different because you don't have a count, you only have a range and a criteria. So I want to do the count if of, you don't have like an average range, the criteria range is also your count range, for example. So let's just say I wanted to count the number of sales that had like which were chocolate chip. I'm not going to reference the revenue, but I'm going to have that be chocolate chip. As you can see, 202 cookie sales for chocolate chip, but for just for Mexico, it's going to be chocolate chip. And I'm going through these kind of quickly, but I go to these formulas a bit more in depth in other videos. So count ifs, and it's just criteria range 1, then criteria 1. So chocolate chip. The second criteria range is going to be the country where I'm going to select Mexico. And same thing with the min. There's no min if, but you can just have, for example, min if was just one criteria. So the min range is going to be your minimum for your revenue based on chocolate chip. And that's because I didn't add a parentheses between the criteria range 1 and the criteria 1. So you can see the small sales for chocolate chip is 1900, whereas the minimum of all the sales for revenue wise is 200. And the same idea for the max ifs, but to just kind of jump into the if versus ifs. So the if is just basically if you want to do this, then do this, then do this. But the ifs is a bit different. Is logical test 1. So it's your first logical. So what do you want to test be true? And then your value of true, and then your logical test 2, and then your value of that's true, and then so on and so forth. And if it's false, it just kind of defaults to the last thing. That's it. I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful. If you did, like, subscribe, comment. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.